Elizabeth Bishop was an American poet, teacher, and artist. In 1911, Bishop was born in Worcester, Massachusetts. When she was young, her dad died and her mom was committed to a mental institution. As a result, she was raised by her maternal grandparents in Nova Scotia, but was later moved to Massachusetts to live with her wealthy paternal grandparents. During her lifetime, Bishop was respected, albeit somewhat obscure. Unlike other poets, Bishop only wrote 101 poems in her lifetime. She was educated at the Walnut Hills School for Girls and later at Vassar College. During her time at Vassar, she met many influential poets who would become lifelong friends. She, along with other students, published the literary journal Conspirito, which rivaled the established Vassar Review. After graduating from Vassar, she lived in New York but traveled frequently to France, Spain, Ireland, Italy, and North Africa. In 1938, she moved to Key West and wrote many of the poems that were later published in her first collection, North and South. In 1944, she moved to Petropolis, Brazil, where she spent 14 years with her lover, Lota de Machado Suarez. In 1956, after publishing her second collection, poems, North and South and A Cold Spring, she would receive the Pulitzer Prize. Unfortunately, in 1967, Suarez killed herself. In 1970, she would take a teaching position at Harvard. That same year, Bishop received a National Book Award in Poetry for the complete poems. After the publication of Geography III in 1976 and a reception of the Neustadt International Prize for Literature, Bishop became internationally recognized. She was the first woman to receive the Neustadt International Prize for Literature, and since her death, she is one out of only 7 Americans to receive it. Bishop died in Boston, Massachusetts in 1979. She was 68 years old.
One Art by Elizabeth Bishop. The art of losing isn't hard to master. So many things seem filled with the intent to be lost, so that their loss is no disaster. Lose something every day, except the fluster of lost door keys, the hour badly spent. The art of losing isn't hard to master. Then practice losing farther, losing faster, places and names, and where it was you meant to travel. None of these will bring disaster. I lost my mother's watch, and look, my last, or next to last, of 3 loved houses went. The art of losing isn't hard to master. I lost 2 cities, lovely ones, and vaster, some realms I owned, 2 rivers, a continent. I miss them, but it wasn't a disaster. Even losing you, the joking voice, a gesture I love, I shan't have lied. It's evident the art of losing's not too hard to master. Though it may look like, write it, like disaster.
In her poem One Art, Elizabeth Bishop employs various poetic devices to convey her message that loss is inevitable in life and one must learn to accept it. In One Art, Elizabeth Bishop recounts times from her own life where she has experienced loss. At first, Bishop talks about losses that the reader can relate to, such as losing keys or wasting an hour of your life. As the poem progresses, the losses described grow in scale and severity. Bishop describes losing abstract concepts like experiences, plans, and the future. She then describes the loss of tangible and sentimental items like her mother's watch. Finally, to show how she has mastered the art of losing, Bishop states that she has lost cities, realms, and an entire continent. Bishop's diction throughout the poem serves to amplify her message of loss being an art. Bishop repeats the word master several times to emphasize that you must treat loss as an art and how mastering the art of losing is feasible for anyone. She also repeats the phrase art of losing to illustrate that losing doesn't always have to be negative. Loss can be a stepping stone to new growth and development in a person's life. And if one masters the art of losing, they can grow as a person. Bishop also employs imagery to describe the keys, houses, and cities she says she has lost in her life. These images are all material items that increase in value, signifying how it is easier to lose more and more important items as you age. Although Bishop didn't literally lose cities, she describes these in the 5th stanza to metaphorically represent greater losses in her own life. Being a fixed verse poem and consisting of 19 lines, this poem is a villanelle. The extremely structured nature of the poem contrasts with the text in the poem. The structure of the 5 stanzas requires Bishop to break up her story into separate, distinguishable parts. with clear chronological order rather than lumping it all into one story. One art is made up of 5 tercets followed by a quatrain, which are linked together through linked sound patterns. Bishop excellently employs grammatical conventions to amplify her message within the poem. For example, in line 10, an exclamation mark is placed after look to draw attention to the word, as that is how someone would say it in everyday conversation. Furthermore, the final stanza of the poem opens with a dash, which is used to slow the poem down and allow for Bishop to exhibit more emotion into her final words of the poem. The poem conveys a theme of loss, increasing in severity, and eventual acceptance of that loss. The tone used gives a sense of resolution, as if they had long lost aforementioned subjects in the past, and are now trying to tell that story to the person they lost.